Good morning, friends. Yes, this is good morning because I'm recording this at about 12:15 a.m. I had promised that I'll probably record it tomorrow, as in today, but since I cannot sleep, uh, hence I thought I'll just post the video today itself. Now, this is the S&P 500 chart. You know, markets worldwide are contracting. So as you can see here, there is nothing significant going on, and S&P 500 remains in a fairly narrow, tight range. Now, before we move forward, let's let me request you to like, share, subscribe the video. Also on membership services, you can join platinum, diamond, gold, silver, copper, etc. And there are various types of services where I will just explain what kind of insights you are given. So if you have questions, uh, call my or WhatsApp 9871066337, or email ashwani_gujral at yahoo.com. That is ASHWANI underscore GUJRAL at yahoo.com, or just straight away go to the YouTube channel and press join and just choose your service and do the formalities. Now, what is going on right now is that you have Brent crude, which is going in for a bit of a collapse. This is a 6% down move. Now, all of you are aware that Brent crude is what we use in India, and it had been raging towards 71, 72, and from there it's down almost 10, $11. So that very positively impacts our inflation. Chances are that Bank Nifty has a bit of an impact tomorrow. Also, what we look at is the bond yield. This 10-year bond yield is now cooling off to about 1.643. Unfortunately, it's not having a lot of impact on the markets. And you have the dollar index, which is showing a fairly strong uptrend, but again now heading into resistance at about 92.65. But this is the only thing that is a bit worrying. Now let's have a look at the Nifty. Before that, let me explain to you the way markets work. Let's go to the whiteboard. So here, there are two types of market action. One type of market action is where you have very strong momentum and you get strong collapses or strong upsides, which means you make one green bar, then you make another, and then you make another, and the market expands in one direction. There are other times when it's a contracting market where you are going up and then you are going down, then you are marginally crossing the previous high, then coming down, then again marginally going higher again, then again coming down. Now, what is happening here is that the distance traveled between this high and this high is much lower than this sort of a market that is traveling. So the issue was last week we had this kind of an expanding market. This week we have a contracting market which requires different tools. The same setups will not work in both markets. In one market, buying as the previous day high is taken out, you start to get expansion. And in the other market, you have to wait for the market to come to you rather than chasing. So there are markets in which chasing works, and there are markets in which waiting for price action works much better. Let me explain this with some sort of examples. So this is the Nifty daily chart. Let's go to the 15-minute chart here. Okay. So this was last week. And as you can see here, every day the market expanded on the downside. It gapped down here. It broke down from this area. So the moment a previous day low was taken out, you had this kind of expansion. Okay. Similarly, if you go back from 15,300, look at the way you collapsed. Okay, so this is the kind of expansionary market we had last week. Now, what's happening here is that after this first day of upside, where you did 400 points, you have a market which is contracting. It has significant declines, then it makes marginal highs, then again has declines. So on a net basis, you are not traveling a great amount of distance. So this was, I think, about so this was about 14,780, and today, if you see, the close is about 14,820. So in 3 days, we have hardly moved on a net basis about 40 odd points. So this is the kind of market which does not need chasing, and what it needs is a waiting for declines to happen towards the pivot, etc., and then buying. And the upsides are also very fairly modest. So you are making your 30, 40 points. You're not able to make those 100, 150, 200 point type of rallies. So for tomorrow, the pivot situation is that your pivot is about 14,800. So what you and the market closing for the day is about 14,814 on the cash Nifty. So the sense would be that the market could first open up and crash into this pivot and then possibly look for a turnaround. Also, when something is going into the pivot, it's very important for you to get this kind of price action where it finds support and makes a higher low. Okay, this is your pivot. You don't buy here, you buy at this point. So very contracting market, the targets have to be modest. The buying has to be done in a very accurate fashion. So this is something that you should remember for tomorrow, that chances are we will have a bit of a gap down, and that gap down, because we are in a mildly uh, upside kind of trend, you would look to buy into the gap down as it stabilizes and as it starts to move higher. Now we'll have to see whether this gap down stops at 14,800 or it goes down to the low of uh, yesterday, which was 14,707 to about 14,720. If the market is trending, it should stop at 14,800. But if it doesn't, then it could even get down to as low as 14,720. Because it is a contracting market, I won't be surprised if it gets to even this point. To be very careful that this is a very very weak trend. FIIs have sold about 100 crores odd, so there isn't really uh, a big push which you are getting from the market. Now this is the bank Nifty. Now what you can see here is you are making some kind of a W pattern. Now like I told you, the Brent crude decline is positive for the bank Nifty. But is it a given that Bank Nifty will break out because of that? Given the kind of institutional interest, there are 50-50 odds that we may break out because of Brent crude, because a lot of fuel is here of short position. So today's rally wasn't really impressive, but if this Bank Nifty starts to cross this 34,350, you could have another 500-600 point worth of rally. But again, be very very careful, because even here there isn't great momentum. So on a pivot basis, we should not be surprised if the market first goes down to about 34,000 and turns from there. This is about 34,000, 34,050 is the sort of pivot zone that we have on the bank Nifty. So main issue here is that last week we were in a different market. This week we are in a different market. And basically, the kind of market you are in, you can make out from the weekly chart. Now, if you see the week before last, you had this narrow range. Last week, you had major expansion. And this week, from what it appears, it's a narrowing week. So you need to have different tools to deal with a narrowing week or an expanding week. In an expanding week, you are selling the breakdown of a previous day's low or buying breakout of previous week a day high. But on a you know sideways to narrow range type of week, you will have to wait to buy into declines, because the declines and the rallies will be almost equal in size. And what that does is that on a net basis, you will not move a whole lot. So I hope the message is very clear, and that should be it. Take care, trade well, and have a good night of whatever is left till now. So take care and good night.